Imagine a young boy sitting alone in his room. The room is small, the walls are plain. There is a computer on the desk, and that boy is about to change the entire world. He is not a superhero. He does not have special powers. He is not from a rich and powerful family. He is just a quiet kid who loves computers. A kid who thinks differently. A kid who never stops asking one simple question: why not? That boy grew up to connect more than 3 billion people. He built one of the most powerful companies in history. He made mistakes. He fell down. He got back up, and he kept going. This is the story of Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Elliott Zuckerberg was born on May 14, 1984, in White Plains, New York. He grew up in a small town called Dobbs Ferry. It was a quiet place, the kind of place where nothing big seems to happen. But inside one house on that quiet street, something extraordinary was already beginning. His father's name was Edward Zuckerberg. Edward was a dentist. He worked hard every day. He cared deeply about his family, and he noticed something unusual about his son very early. Little Mark was not like the other kids. Most children wanted to play outside. They wanted to ride bikes. They wanted to chase each other in the yard. But Mark always wanted to sit at the computer. He wanted to understand how it worked. He wanted to build things with it. Edward did not ignore this. He supported it. When Mark was around 10 years old, his father hired a private software tutor for him. The tutor's name was David Newman. David came to the house every week. He worked with young Mark, and after just a short time, David was amazed. He told Edward, "Your son is not a normal student. He learns faster than I can teach him. He already knows things I did not expect." Edward smiled. He was proud, but he also knew his son was going to need more than a weekly tutor. So Edward started learning himself. He bought books about programming. He studied at night after work. He wanted to talk with his son about computers. He wanted to understand Mark's world. He did not want his son to feel alone in his passion. And young Mark felt that love. He felt his father's support. He felt safe to dream. By the time Mark was 12 years old, he built his first real software program. It was a simple messaging system. But it was not for play. It was to solve a real problem. His father worked in a dental office connected to their home. The staff at the front desk had to walk to tell Edward when a patient arrived. It was slow. It was annoying. So Mark built a program he called ZuckNet. It allowed the staff to send messages between computers inside the office and the house. No more walking. Just type a message. And it appeared on the other screen. His family loved it. His father used it every day. And Mark learned something important that day. He learned that technology is not just about code. It is about solving real problems for real people. He carried that lesson for the rest of his life. As Mark grew older, his love for computers only got stronger. He started building small games. He made programs just for fun. He designed tools for his friends. He was always creating something new. In high school, Mark went to a school called Ardsley High School at first. Then his parents sent him to a private school called Phillips Exeter Academy. It was one of the best schools in America. The students were smart. The teachers were excellent. And Mark found himself surrounded by people who pushed him to be better. At Exeter, Mark excelled in many subjects. He was especially good at literature and ancient languages. He studied Latin and Greek. He loved reading classical stories, the stories of great leaders and thinkers from thousands of years ago fascinated him. But computers always called him back. In his final year at Exeter, he and his classmate Adam D'Angelo built a music player together. They called it Synapse Media Player. The program used artificial intelligence to learn a user's music taste. It would study what you listen to and then suggest more music you would enjoy. Mark and Adam did not build it for money. They built it because they thought it was a cool idea. They thought it would be useful. They put it online and shared it freely. And something amazing happened. People loved it. The program got more than 1 million downloads. And then the phone calls started coming. Companies called. Big companies. Companies like Microsoft. Companies like America Online. They wanted to buy Synapse. They wanted to hire Mark and Adam. They were offering hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mark was 17 years old. Most people would have said yes. Most people would have taken the money. Most 17-year-olds would have signed that contract without blinking. But Mark said no. He was not ready to sell. He was not done learning. He was not done building. He had a feeling deep inside that something bigger was still ahead. He turned down the offers. He kept the program free. And he moved on to the next chapter. In the fall of 2002, Mark Zuckerberg arrived at Harvard University. He carried one bag and one laptop, and he carried a head full of ideas. Harvard was one of the most famous universities in the world. The students there were among the brightest people on earth. Doctors, lawyers, scientists, future presidents. They all walked those same hallways. Mark studied computer science and psychology. He was fascinated by how the mind works. Why do people connect with each other? What makes people feel close? What makes them feel far away? These questions lived inside him. But he also had another habit. He kept building things. In his first year at Harvard, he built a program called Course Match. It was simple. It helped students choose their classes based on what their friends were taking. You could see which of your friends had signed up for which course. It was helpful. It was smart. People used it. Then he built something else. Something that caused a lot of trouble, but also something that taught him a very important lesson. In October 2003, Mark built a website called FaceMash. He was in his dorm room alone. It was late at night. He had just had a difficult experience. A girl he liked had not wanted to continue dating him. He felt hurt and angry, and he made a bad decision. He hacked into the Harvard servers. He pulled profile photos of students from different dormitory websites. He put 2 photos side by side on his new website, and he asked visitors one question: who is more attractive? People could click on one photo. The system would count the votes. The most clicked faces would be ranked at the top. Within hours, FaceMash spread across campus. Thousands of students visited. The site became so popular that it crashed the Harvard network. The servers could not handle the traffic. The next morning, Mark woke up to very bad news. Harvard's administration was furious. They called him in. They charged him with breaking computer security. They charged him with violating privacy. They charged him with violating student rights. He could have been expelled from Harvard. Mark sat in that office. He listened to the charges. He felt shame. He felt regret. He knew he had done something wrong. He had used people's photos without asking. He had treated people like objects to be rated. And he had broken trust. He apologized. Sincerely. He wrote a public apology on his personal blog. He admitted what he did was wrong. He said he was not thinking clearly that night. The charges were eventually dropped. But the experience stayed with him. He learned something powerful. Technology can hurt people if you use it carelessly. Privacy matters. People matter. The feeling of being judged, being ranked, being reduced to just a number, that feeling was painful, and he never wanted to make people feel that way again. But something else happened too. Even while people were criticizing FaceMash, even while the administration was angry, Mark noticed something fascinating. People were hungry for connection. They wanted to know about each other. They wanted to see each other. They wanted to be seen. And that hunger gave him an idea. What if there was a website that connected people in a real way? Not to rate them, not to judge them, but to actually share who they were, their interests, their photos, their friendships. At Harvard, every dormitory had a small printed booklet of student photos and information. Students called it the Facebook. It helped new students learn the names and faces of their classmates. It helped people connect, but the Facebooks were small. They only showed one dorm. What if there was one Facebook for all of Harvard? Mark began talking to people about this idea. He talked to his roommates. He talked to friends in the computer science department. He was excited. He could not stop thinking about it. In January 2004, he started building. He worked every night. He forgot to sleep. He forgot to eat sometimes. He sat in his dorm room in Kirkland House, typing code, testing features, fixing bugs. His roommates, Dustin Moskovitz and Chris Hughes, watched him work with amazement. "Mark, you should sleep," Dustin said one night. "I will," Mark said, "after I fix this." But he did not sleep. He kept going. He called the website the Facebook. On February 4th, 2004, he launched it. He sent out emails to a few friends. He put a link on a couple of message boards. He told some people in class about it. Within 24 hours, more than 1,000 Harvard students had signed up. Mark stared at the screen. He could not believe it. He refreshed the page again and again. The number kept going up. By the end of the first week, half of Harvard was using the Facebook. Within a month, it spread to Yale, then Columbia, then Stanford. Something was happening. Something big. But success always brings problems. And for Mark, the problems arrived quickly. 3 Harvard students named Cameron Winklevoss, Tyler Winklevoss, and Divya Narendra came forward with a claim. They said Mark had stolen their idea. They said they had hired him to build a similar website for them called Harvard Connection. They said he had agreed to work with them, but instead, he had used their idea to build the Facebook on his own. Mark denied their claims. He said his idea was different from theirs. He said he had not stolen anything. But the accusations followed him like a shadow. This was one of the first truly dark periods in his story, being accused of betrayal, of dishonesty, of cheating. It was painful. Years later, the case was settled. Mark's company paid the Winklevoss twins and Narendra a settlement of $65 million. Mark never fully admitted wrongdoing. The exact truth of what happened between them is still debated. But one thing was clear. Mark was learning about the hard side of success, the legal battles, the accusations, the people who wanted a piece of what he was building. He kept moving forward anyway. By the summer of 2004, the Facebook was growing fast. It had spread to dozens of universities. Students everywhere were signing up, and investors were starting to notice. A man named Peter Thiel invested $500,000 in the Facebook. He believed in Mark's vision. He believed in the platform. And his investment allowed Mark to grow the team. Dustin Moskovitz helped manage the technical side. Chris Hughes worked on communications. Eduardo Saverin, another Harvard friend, helped with the business side. Sean Parker, the co-founder of Napster, joined as the first president of the company. That summer, Mark made a decision that shocked many people. He packed up his things. He left Harvard. He moved the team to Silicon Valley in California. People thought he was making a huge mistake. He was only 20 years old. He was at Harvard, one of the best universities in the world. And he was dropping out? "You can always go back to school," Mark told his friends. "You cannot always get this chance." His parents were worried. His father called him. "Mark, are you sure about this? This is Harvard. Do not throw that away." "Dad," Mark said calmly, I am not throwing anything away. I am going toward something I believe in. Edward Zuckerberg was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Okay, I trust you. Just be careful." Mark moved to California. He rented a small house. The team worked from the living room. They worked all day and all night. They ordered pizza. They slept on couches. They lived for the website. And the Facebook kept growing. In 2005, the company bought the domain name Facebook.com for $200,000. They dropped the "the." The website was now just Facebook. It sounded cleaner. It sounded bigger. And it was growing bigger every day. The next year, Facebook opened to everyone. Not just college students. Any person with an email address could now sign up. The whole world could join. And they did. Millions of people signed up in the first weeks. Then tens of millions. Parents found old friends. Cousins reconnected. People shared photos of their lives. They wrote messages. They poked each other. They built their profiles. They told the world who they were. Facebook was not just a website anymore. It was becoming a part of daily life. With growth came more attention. And with attention came more challenges. In 2006, Yahoo offered to buy Facebook for $1 billion. $1 billion. That number was almost impossible to imagine. Mark was 22 years old. He could have sold. He could have been a billionaire and retired before most people even started their careers. He turned it down. The board of directors was angry. The investors were upset. Some of them could not understand the decision. "Mark, this is $1 billion, one investor said. "Take it. Take the money." "Facebook is worth more than $1 billion, Mark said quietly. "And more importantly, we are not done yet. We have not finished what we set out to do." The investor shook his head. "You are making a mistake." But Mark did not waver. He believed in his vision. He believed Facebook was just beginning, and he was right. The years that followed were years of extraordinary growth. Facebook added features. The news feed, the like button, Facebook Messenger, the mobile app. Each new feature made the platform more powerful. Each update brought more people in. By 2008, Facebook had more than 100 million users. The number seemed incredible. Then it hit 200 million, then 300 million. Mark hired Sheryl Sandberg as the chief operating officer in 2008. Sheryl was brilliant. She had worked at Google. She knew how to build a business. She knew how to turn a platform people loved into a company that could survive and grow. Mark and Sheryl worked closely together. They were different in many ways. Sheryl was warm and outgoing. Mark was quiet and focused. But together, they made Facebook stronger. Sheryl helped build the advertising system that made Facebook profitable. She helped Mark see the business side of what they were building. And Mark helped Sheryl understand the long-term vision. Under their leadership together, Facebook went from losing money to making billions. In 2010, a movie came out that shook Mark's world. It was called The Social Network. It was a Hollywood film about the founding of Facebook. It portrayed Mark as cold, calculating, and ruthless. It showed him betraying friends. It showed him as someone who cared only about success and nothing else. Mark watched the film. He said it was mostly fiction. He said the real story was not like that. He said he had not been a cruel person in those early days. But the film reached hundreds of millions of people, and many of them believed what they saw. It was one of the most painful moments of Mark's journey. Watching a version of yourself on a huge screen, a version that is mean and lonely and uncaring, knowing that millions of people might think that is who you really are. He did not respond with anger. He did not make loud public statements. He quietly went back to work. He let the results speak for him. And in the years that followed, He tried to be more open, more human. He started doing more interviews. He started being more visible. He wanted people to know the real Mark, not the movie version. On May 18, 2012, something historic happened. Facebook went public. It listed on the stock market. The initial public offering valued Facebook at more than $100 billion. It was the largest technology IPO in history at that time. Mark, at just 27 years old, became one of the wealthiest people on Earth. On that same day, something even more personal happened. Mark married his longtime girlfriend, Priscilla Chan. They had met at Harvard. She was studying biology. He was building Facebook. They had dated for many years through all the hard times and the good times. She stood by him when people doubted him. She stayed when the storms came. At their small wedding ceremony, surrounded by close friends and family, Mark looked at Priscilla and felt something that no amount of money could buy. He felt at home. "You are the most important person in my world," he told her softly. Priscilla smiled. "And you are mine. Now do not check your phone during the ceremony." Everyone laughed. And for one beautiful afternoon, the founder of one of the world's greatest companies was just a man in love, saying "I do." But the story was far from over. In fact, some of the hardest chapters were still ahead. In 2012, Facebook bought a photo-sharing app called Instagram for $1 billion. Many people thought Mark had overpaid. They thought Instagram was just a small app for photos. They did not understand what Mark saw. He saw community. He saw visual storytelling. He saw a new generation of users who expressed themselves through images. He saw the future. 2 years later, Facebook bought a messaging app called WhatsApp for $19 billion. Again, people were shocked. $19 billion for a simple messaging app? But again, Mark saw something others did not. He saw that messaging was becoming the most personal and powerful form of human communication. He wanted to be at the center of that. Both acquisitions proved to be brilliant. Instagram grew from a small app to a platform with more than 1 billion users. WhatsApp became the primary messaging app in dozens of countries around the world. Mark's vision was becoming clearer. He was not just building a social network. He was building the infrastructure of human connection itself. Then came the storms. In 2016, something happened that would change everything. The United States held a presidential election, and Facebook was right in the middle of it. Not because Mark wanted it to be, but because the platform had become so powerful that the whole world was using it. Political groups used Facebook to spread information. Some of that information was not true. Fake news. Made-up stories designed to make people angry, designed to divide them, designed to influence how they voted. Facebook algorithms spread this content fast because angry content got more clicks, more comments, more shares. The algorithm rewarded outrage, and outrage spread misinformation faster than truth. Mark faced intense criticism. Politicians called him to testify. Journalists wrote devastating stories. People accused Facebook of destroying democracy. In April 2018, Mark sat before the United States Congress. He was wearing a dark suit. He sat in front of dozens of senators. Cameras were pointing at him from every direction. The room was tense. Senator after senator asked him difficult questions. They asked about privacy. They asked about fake news. They asked about data collection. They asked about Russian interference in the election. Mark answered carefully. He apologized where apologies were needed. He explained how the platform worked. He promised changes. It was a grueling day. More than 5 hours of questioning. Mark sat straight. He answered each question. He did not run. He did not hide. After the hearing, Some people criticized his answers. They felt he had not done enough. Others said he had handled it with grace under pressure. But something important happened in that hearing room. Mark looked into the cameras and he told the world, "I started Facebook. I run it, and I am responsible for what happens on it." He owned the responsibility. He did not blame others. He did not make excuses. It was one of his most human moments. The Cambridge Analytica scandal made things worse. A company called Cambridge Analytica had harvested personal data from millions of Facebook users without their full knowledge. They had used that data to target political advertising. When the story broke, the world was furious. People felt violated. They felt their private information had been stolen and used against them. Facebook's stock price dropped. Users threatened to delete their accounts. The hashtag #DeleteFacebook trended worldwide. Politicians around the world called for regulation. Mark issued a public apology. "We have a responsibility to protect your data," he wrote. "And if we can't, then we don't deserve to serve you." He promised to fix things. He hired more people to work on safety. He changed the rules around data sharing. He invested billions into security. But trust, once broken, takes a long time to rebuild. Mark had always believed in the pure good of connecting people. He had always believed that more connection meant more understanding and more peace. Now he was confronting a painful truth. Connection can also spread division. Openness can also enable abuse. He sat alone in his office one evening after a particularly brutal week of news coverage. He looked at the screen. He thought about all the people who had trusted Facebook, who had shared their lives there, their photos, their messages, their memories. He thought about his two daughters, Maxima and August, who he and Priscilla had welcomed into the world. He thought about the world they would grow up in, a world that he had helped shape. He took a deep breath, and he made a decision. He would not give up. He would not run away. He would fix it. Not perfectly, not overnight, but he would try with everything he had. In 2017, Mark began a personal project. He decided to visit every state in the United States. He wanted to meet real people, not investors, not politicians, not tech workers, regular people. He visited a farm in Iowa. He sat with farmers and talked about their lives. He visited a steel mill in Ohio. He put on a hard hat and walked the floor. He talked to the workers. He asked them about their hopes and their worries. He visited a Native American reservation. He sat in a circle with elders and listened to their stories. He visited hurricane survivors in Puerto Rico after a devastating storm. He walked through destroyed neighborhoods. He talked to families who had lost everything. He came back from each trip changed. He had built one of the world's most powerful communication platforms. But he had been inside his bubble for too long. He had been surrounded by engineers and executives and numbers and metrics. Real people reminded him why any of it mattered. In the middle of all the turmoil, Mark and Priscilla made a very public decision. When their first daughter, Maxima, was born in 2015, they wrote her a letter, and they published it for the world to read. In that letter, they announced that they would give away 99% of their Facebook shares over their lifetime. That was worth tens of billions of dollars. They created the Zuckerberg Initiative, a philanthropic organization focused on three main goals: advancing science, promoting education, and building strong communities. Many people were moved by this announcement. A man worth more than $40 billion was choosing to give almost all of it away, not to his children, not to build a dynasty, but to try to make the world better. Some people were skeptical. They said it was a PR move. They said it was about tax benefits. They said it was not genuine, but Priscilla, who runs much of the Zuckerberg initiative, pushed back on those critics. She had devoted her career to medicine and education. She became a pediatrician. She worked with children from low-income families. Her commitment to helping others was not new. It was who she had always been, and Mark followed her lead in many ways. She helped ground him. She reminded him what really mattered. In 2021, Mark made the biggest bet of his career, bigger than buying Instagram, bigger than WhatsApp, bigger than going public. He announced that Facebook, the company, would change its name. The parent company would be called Meta. Meta, from the Greek word for beyond. He was betting on the metaverse. The metaverse was a vision of the future internet, a digital world where people would not just look at screens, but step inside them. Using virtual reality headsets, people would meet each other in virtual spaces. They would work together in virtual offices. They would attend concerts and sports events in virtual arenas. They would build lives inside digital worlds. Mark had been thinking about this vision for years. He believed the next major computing platform, after mobile phones, would be virtual reality and augmented reality. He invested tens of billions of dollars into this vision. Meta bought companies. Meta hired engineers. Meta built hardware. Meta created the Quest virtual reality headset and sold millions of them. And then the criticism came harder than ever before. People said the metaverse was a fantasy. They said nobody wanted to wear heavy headsets all day. They said Mark was wasting money chasing a dream that would never come true. Investors were angry. The stock price fell dramatically. At one point, Meta's market value dropped by more than $600 billion. Meta lost $47 billion in one quarter from its metaverse division alone. The headlines were brutal. The fall of Zuckerberg. Is Facebook finished? The most expensive mistake in tech history. Mark heard all of it. He read the stories. He watched his stock price fall. He felt the weight of it. But he had been here before. At every important moment in his life, someone had told him he was making a mistake. They had told him not to drop out of Harvard. They had told him not to turn down Yahoo's $1 billion offer. They had told him not to buy Instagram and WhatsApp. He had been wrong before, too. He had made real mistakes. He had caused real harm. He knew that. He owned that. But this vision, this idea of the metaverse, he believed in it with his whole heart. He believed the technology would mature. He believed people would eventually want to meet in virtual space. He believed in the long game. So he kept investing. He kept building. He kept going. In 2023, something happened that nobody expected. Meta had one of the best years in its history. The stock price climbed back up. The company found ways to make money that did not depend on the metaverse succeeding immediately. The core advertising business recovered. Reels, the short video feature on Instagram and Facebook, became enormously popular. Users came back. Revenue soared. Meta's share price went from around $90 at its lowest point to more than $300 a year later. Critics who had written Mark off had to reconsider. And then, in 2023, Meta released something that shocked the artificial intelligence world. They released a program called LLaMA. It was a large language model, similar to the technology behind ChatGPT. And unlike other AI companies, Meta released it for free to researchers and developers. The tech world was surprised. Other AI companies were keeping their best technology secret. They were charging money for access. But Meta gave it away. Mark believed that open source AI that anyone can use and study and improve, was better for the world than closed AI controlled by a few companies. He believed that openness leads to better outcomes. It was a bold and controversial move. Some experts worried that releasing powerful AI for free could be dangerous. Others praised it as democratizing one of the most important technologies of the age. The debate continued. But one thing was clear. Mark Zuckerberg was not done surprising people. Through all of this, there was the personal side of the story. The human side. Raising two daughters, Maxima and August, in a world of extraordinary wealth and extreme public scrutiny. Trying to give them a normal childhood. Trying to teach them that money is not the most important thing. That kindness is. That hard work is. That using your gifts to help others is. Mark and Priscilla tried to stay grounded. They drove regular cars. They lived in the same Palo Alto neighborhood for years. They cooked dinner at home. They took walks together. They went to birthday parties for their children's friends. Priscilla continued her medical work. She continued working with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, pushing forward on science research, on education technology, on helping underserved communities. Mark started learning new things. He learned Mandarin Chinese. He began studying martial arts. He trained in the Brazilian fighting style called jiu-jitsu and began competing in tournaments under his own name, winning medals. He seemed to understand something important, that a rich life is not just about building companies. It is about growing as a person, learning new things, being present with the people you love, staying curious. He once posted a photo of himself training, covered in sweat, medal around his neck. Under the photo, he wrote a simple message: beginner's mind, always learning. There is a conversation that people close to Mark often describe, and it reveals something important about who he is. He is sitting with a group of engineers. They are working on a new feature. There is a disagreement. One engineer thinks the feature is not ready. It needs more work. Mark looks at the screen. He tries the feature himself. He finds a problem. "You are right," he says simply. "Let us fix it before we ship." No anger, no ego. Just let us fix it. That directness, that willingness to look at a problem and say, "Let us fix it," has been at the center of everything Mark has built. He is not perfect. He has made serious mistakes, but he has rarely hidden from them. He has rarely pretended they did not happen. When Facebook was used to spread violence in Myanmar, he acknowledged the failure. When the company was used to spread election misinformation, he acknowledged the failure. When Cambridge Analytica happened, he acknowledged the failure. He did not always have the right answers. He did not always fix things fast enough. But he never looked away. There is a question that many people ask about Mark Zuckerberg. Is he a good person? It is a complicated question. He has connected 3 billion people. He has given tens of billions to charity. He helped build tools that allowed families separated by distance to stay close. He helped small businesses find customers. He helped movements for justice find their voices. He also built a system that spread misinformation, that harvested data, that made people feel bad about themselves, that amplified anger and division. He did good things. He did harmful things. He made brilliant decisions. He made serious mistakes. He is human, and maybe that is the most important part of his story. Not that he is perfect, but that he is human, a human being trying to use his extraordinary gifts to do something meaningful, trying to learn from his mistakes, trying to do better. If you could sit across from Mark Zuckerberg today and ask him one question, what would it be? Maybe you would ask about the future of technology. Maybe you would ask about artificial intelligence. Maybe you would ask about the metaverse. Or maybe you would ask the question that is really at the heart of everything. Why? Why do you keep going? After the congressional hearings, after the scandals, after the stock crashes, after the headlines, after all of it. And he might answer you the way he has answered before, simply and honestly, because I believe in people. I believe in their ability to connect. I believe that when people understand each other better, the world goes better. I believe we are still in the early chapters of what this technology can do, and I want to be there for the next chapter. Let us go back to the beginning for a moment, back to that quiet house in Dobbs Ferry, New York, back to that boy sitting at his computer, back to the father who sat with his son and learned to code so he would not feel alone. Think about what Edward Zuckerberg did for his son. He did not push Mark to be a doctor or a lawyer. He did not tell Mark to put down the computer and go outside. He supported the dream that lived in his child's heart. He invested in it. He learned alongside him. He said, "I trust you." And that trust created space for something extraordinary to grow. Think about Priscilla, who stayed through every storm, who built her own remarkable life of service and compassion, who helped keep Mark human in a world that could have made him something less than human. Think about the engineers who worked all night in that small rented house in Palo Alto, sleeping on couches, eating pizza, believing in an idea before it was anything more than an idea. Think about the billions of people who opened Facebook for the first time and found a friend they had lost, a family member far away, a community where they belonged. Every great story is made of many people, and the story of Mark Zuckerberg is no different. Here is something worth thinking about. When Mark Zuckerberg started building, he was 19 years old. He did not have a business degree. He did not have investors. He did not have experience. He did not have permission from anyone. He had an idea. He had skills he had spent years developing. He had the courage to begin, and he had the stubbornness to keep going when people told him to stop. You do not need to be a genius to take the first step. You do not need to be special to start something. You need to start. And then you need to keep going. The world will tell you your idea is too small, or too big, or too early, or too late. People will say you are not qualified. They will say it has already been done. They will say it cannot work. Mark heard all of those voices, and he kept typing anyway. What idea is living in your head right now that you have not yet started? What skill are you developing that you have not yet used? What problem have you noticed that you believe you could solve? You do not have to build the next Facebook. You just have to start the next thing. Your thing. Mark Zuckerberg's story is still being written. He is in his early 40s as of this telling. The technology he is building is becoming more powerful every year. The questions around that technology are becoming more urgent every year. How do we use artificial intelligence well? How do we make sure the metaverse serves people and does not exploit them? How do we balance openness with safety? How do we connect billions of people without tearing them apart? These are the questions of our time, and Mark has decided to spend his life trying to answer them. Not because he is perfect, not because he always gets it right, but because he believes it matters. Because he woke up one day inside that small dorm room and decided that connecting people was worth giving his life to. Think about the lessons in this story. When you are young, pay attention to what you love to do, not what others expect you to do, what you love. That passion is a signal. It is pointing you somewhere. Follow it. When people tell you that you are making a mistake, listen carefully. Sometimes they are right, but sometimes they are just afraid. Learn to know the difference, then decide. When you fail, and you will fail, do not run from it. Look at it clearly. Admit it. Apologize if you hurt someone. Then learn what the failure is trying to teach you. Then get back up. When success arrives, be careful. Success can make you blind. It can make you isolated. It can make you forget about the real people your work is supposed to serve. Stay connected to those people. Stay humble. Keep listening. And when you find the people who believe in you and love you, the father who learns to code beside you, the partner who stays through the storms, the friends who sleep on couches with you because they believe in something, hold those people close. They are worth more than any amount of money. There is a final moment worth telling, a moment that happened quietly and privately, but was shared with the world later. When Mark's daughter Maxima was born with a health complication, she needed to spend time in the hospital. Mark and Priscilla sat beside her. They watched her tiny chest rise and fall. They held her small hands. They prayed. And in that hospital room, all the wealth and all the success and all the headlines meant absolutely nothing. There was just a father and a mother and their little girl. Mark looked at his daughter and felt something shift inside him. He understood more deeply than ever before why any of it mattered. Not the stock price, not the user numbers, not the features or the algorithms or the acquisitions. It mattered because people are connected to each other. Because a father watching his daughter is the same, whether that father is a billionaire or a farmer. Because love is the original and most important network, and everything else, every company, every platform, every technology is just a tool in service of that deeper truth. He walked out of that hospital room and wrote the letter to his daughter that the world would later read, the letter about giving away 99% of what he had built. Because what is the point of building something if you do not give it back? This is the story of Mark Zuckerberg, a boy from a quiet town who loved computers, a teenager who turned down millions because he knew something bigger was coming, a young man who dropped out of one of the best universities in the world to chase a dream, a CEO who made serious mistakes and faced the consequences, a father who sat in a hospital room and remembered what really mattered, a human being trying, in his imperfect and determined way, to make the world more connected. He changed the world. He hurt some people along the way. He helped billions of others. He learned. He grew. He is still growing, and maybe that is the most honest summary of any human life. We change things. We hurt some people. We help others. We learn. We grow. The question is whether we are brave enough to start, whether we are honest enough to look at our mistakes, whether we are humble enough to keep learning, whether we are loving enough to remember why we started in the first place. Mark Zuckerberg asked himself that question every step of the way, and he kept choosing to keep going. So can you. Whatever your idea is, whatever your passion is, whatever quiet fire is burning inside you right now, do not let it die. Feed it. Build something with it. Make mistakes with it. Learn from those mistakes and keep going. The world is waiting to see what you will build. Moral of the story. True success is not about being perfect. It is about having the courage to start, the honesty to admit your mistakes, the strength to keep going after failure, and the wisdom to remember that people always matter more than profit. Build something meaningful. Give back more than you take, and never stop learning.